welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, viewers. Well, for the rest of the show this morning, for the entire show this morning, I'm going to be joined by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine as we discuss a lot of the things that are within the space. And I know that a lot of you have been having some questions. I mean, we've been hearing so many things, so many accusations, but we're going to get the answers to all of those things in just a bit. So good morning and welcome to you, Chief. How are you doing this morning? And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Tobago. Happy to be here this morning.
All right, great. So getting straight on into it, sure. I want to start things off with jazz because that's been the latest conversation within the space. Now, you are somebody that has been saying for quite a long time
consistently
for a long time that, you know, jazz should be something that should be done by the private sector.
Correct.
Right, and then, but the official announcement only came just a week ago.
Well, actually, to be fair, last year on the 23rd of February, I made it clear that last year would be the last year that we will have jazz as we traditionally have jazz. Because the way jazz was done by the THA is not the most sustainable model. So I said that since last year, February, more than a year ago. So more than a year ago, I also threw out a challenge to the private sector to get involved in jazz. So it's not news, as in it shouldn't take anybody by surprise that we held true to that decision. Because that decision was announced since last year. As a matter of fact, one of the things I did before coming for this interview is that I pulled up an actual news article that essentially quoted me. And I said, quite interesting. This news article actually quoted my engagement. And in that article, I was making it clear. We can't have a model whereby the THA pays 100% for the artists. The THA pays 100% for infrastructure. The THA pays 100% or at least 90% for marketing. That the THA pays 100% for personnel that must work. That the THA also find free tickets to give to people in the space who want some comps and might be for good reason. They might be diplomats and such other notables within the society. That model cannot be sustainable. And as a matter of fact, in 2017, the THA had a task force in which we had people like George Leacock, Carlos Hazel, and so on. When you look through that report suggested that the average spend by the average visitor for jazz, and this is 2017, was just over $1,000, like about $1,200 or so. When we juxtapose that to the spend during Carnival, which is double that for the actual visitor. If we look last year and we compare jazz to the Tobago Carnival, which one had more visitors coming to the island? Undoubtedly was the Carnival. Which event had greater spend by patrons? Undoubtedly it was the Carnival period. When we also look at the jazz, like the Carnival product, it's primarily subscribed to by locals, by people from Trinidad and Tobago, overwhelming majority. So it has been a very, very long time since Tobago has not been able to really attract a very large crowd. Because if you look at the 2017 report, it will also share that sort of information.
Yes.
And so the model I proposed, I said, look, last year, when I made the announcement, I said to the public, I said, look, private sector, we have promoters, we have people in the hospitality industry, come together, come up with a program. The THA should move from being host to being sponsor, being a sponsor. So we essentially saying we are willing to sponsor an event, but we are not willing to be
the host of it.
100% host of it, because it's not the most sustainable, because the day the government is unable to spend the money, it just collapses. But if it's private sector driven, and you get to earn from it, you get to maximize profits, you get the support of the THA that's facilitating, with or without the government, you can go with your program. And that's what we hope, what we hope for. And I
Well, there was a criticism from some people who did not necessarily disagree with the decision, but there was that thing where they were hoping that the THA would have a conversation with the events promoters in the space to see how we can make that transition from the THA hosting it to now the private sector, taking the helm of it.
But who said some of that did not happen? As a matter of fact, a group of promoters came together very early this year, and they pitched a proposal. But their proposal is to go on a date that's different from the traditional jazz date, to give the festival a different name than Tobago Jazz Experience. So it's rebranding, it's fresh date, and a sort of fresh lineup with programming while keeping some of the traditional elements that we have grown to love. So in their proposal, they have kept elements such as having an event in the East, for example, so that the people in the East are not left out. They have considered the geographic spread generally, and they have looked at, or they are looking at bigger name artists and so on. Now, I'm not at liberty to disclose that because it's not THA's event. It's a group of private promoters who came together and decided that they will organize themselves. So that is in fact happening. My point is, and this is a lesson for us as an island, opportunities are really handed to you. So there is an opportunity in this space. People who become successful businessmen and women are people who grab opportunities. So when I announced it in February last year, and I could tell you, I even saw an email from someone living in the US who sent a proposal saying, look, we want to come and do a program in Tobago, but the intention of the THA is not to support an outside entity in doing the program in Tobago, is really to support the sector, the creative sector, and those who are in the sector that does this kind of work. And as a matter of fact, you could ask any of those promoters about whether or not we have in fact been supportive. We have been supportive to the extent that we have been waiving fees left, right, and center for the use of our facilities. Now, we can't do it for every event and every single time because these facilities don't maintain themselves. They cost to be maintained, but we have been waiving fees. We have been, for example, for the fishermen festivals and so on, we have been assisting them in so far as getting payments for police and for fires and so on to support the events. And that's where I want to begin to see the role of the government. The role of the government must be more to facilitate than to do everything, because we are creating a group of people, we are creating an island of people who are independent in their own right, who can stand on their own two feet with or without the government, and who can be successful entrepreneurs even in the creative industry. And so we are very, very, very happy to give the support. We are very happy to ensure that the space with event tourism being a big deal, that is a success. And I'm saying the best model, the most sustainable model is one where the public and the private enterprise partner with each other. And so I thought in announcing it since last year, I thought more people would have jumped at the opportunity, would have said, look, I have a plan, I have thought of something, or maybe a couple people come together and say, we will work this thing out together. Right, and I'm saying a few have. I wish it was more that came forward, but with the few that came forward, I think they have a solid proposal, and the executive is at the moment considering what kind of support it can give to them. But we indicated to them just this week. We indicated to them, look, you launch out, start a thing, and we will see how much we can support you with as far as resources are available.
Now, one of the criticisms that your administration has also been getting is that sometimes things are announced late, and this is not specifically about jazz or anything like that, but just in general, whether it's plans, it's policies, decisions that are being made. It seems that it's like a best kept secret for a while, and then just before, whenever the thing is, you make the announcements. We saw what happened in Carnival with the changes that were being made and the disruptions that it caused around the mass community and so on. And that just seems to be the pattern of the administration. Why is it that we're continually going along that line instead of coming up earlier to the public or to the stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders, and make the adjustments that need to be made and have the conversations that need to be had?
Well, while I will concede in part to that criticism, and as a government, you must be honest enough to concede where there are flaws. While I will concede in part to that, the carnival in February might be a bad example. It might be a bad example because, for a fact, meetings were held last year with the association. Certain agreements were had with the association. We were in the first or second week of January and still getting proposals from the associations. In some instances, they were pulling back proposals, changing proposals, and so on. So that's why that Carnival might be a bad example, because that's an example of what happens when an industry is not properly organized. And if you listen to what happened in the meeting, you will realize the meeting that exploded, so to speak. You will realize that some of the mass men and women say, well, the association doesn't speak for me. I am not a part of the association. I am my own entity, and so on. And that's another flaw of us as an island, our seemingly our inability in some sectors to pull together as one, to sit and to organize ourselves as one. Because if the government has to treat with an entity, for example, and you mentioned the Carnival as an example, the government can't treat with a mass band association on one end and then treat with 5, 6, 7 individuals who are not a part of the association but want their own thing on another end. It has to be a singular entity. That aside, bad example aside, I would concede that sometimes we don't communicate enough. And it's not that communication is late, but we don't communicate publicly enough. Because sometimes while the thing might be announced publicly late, the conversations are happening, the letters are passing back and forth between government and the sector, and people are being made aware. But as a responsible government, one of the things that we have to do better at is ensuring that the wider community is brought into the conversation loop much earlier than they're often brought into the conversation loop. But this jazz case in point, I started the conversation publicly since February last year. People came out, they enjoyed Boys to Men. I see the women rushing for the roses to Boys to Men. That came and it passed. Heritage came and passed. We had all the harvests in between, all the different small events in between. October came and passed. Christmas came and passed. February came and passed. And the public is only now ready to have the conversation, literally, when we are drawing close to the anniversary date. When what should have happened, because there is a promoters association, not so? When what should have happened is the announcement made in February last year, they should have met busily. They should have organized their own proposal. They should have pulled the industry together, say, how can we do this thing? And that's the point I'm making. We have to find a way to get Tobagonians to appreciate the need to operate independent of government. And it's not that government is bad. I know it's hard because the traditional mold is let the government wine, dine, fet you. Let the government take every part of your life, because if the government does that, then we are almost guaranteed to get your vote the next time, because we could dangle it over your head as a carrot and say, look, if you don't vote for me, if you don't support me, you will not get this thing. But if I make you independent, it means that every election cycle, I am at your beck and call, and you can, without fear or favor, decide for yourself whether or not you're going to restore the support for me or give it to someone else, and you don't feel pigeonholed by the government. It's never a healthy governance model for the government to subsume every single aspect of people's lives. And so what we really desire for Tobagoans is that Tobagoans enjoy a quality of life whereby they feel independent enough to make independent decisions for themselves.
All right, great. Well, we're going to have a pause right there because we've got to go for a break. But viewers, don't worry. We still got Chief on for the rest of the hour on GMT, so don't go anywhere. Oh, welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, now we are continuing our conversation this morning with Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. And our next phase of the conversation this morning is regarding this latest one of the latest controversies that are out there, where there's this WhatsApp, there's a shot of a printout of a WhatsApp conversation that is alleging that perhaps the Chief Secretary might be getting some kickback from a contract. Now,
so let me be very, very clear with you. And I have been purposefully quiet, because right now I could do with some monies, waiting to see who I should sue, and who more than alleges but calls my name inappropriately. Let me be lucidly clear with Tobagoans that this Chief Secretary, Farley Chavez Augustine, has never received and will never receive, has never requested and will never request any kickback from any contractor anywhere in this space. Very clear on that. I live off of my salary. I do a lot of my work off of my salary. As a matter of fact, you should see me at Christmas time. Probably I should take you next time I'm going to purchase toys for Christmas, for example. You should see me go to the bank and withdraw $20,000, $30,000 and go through Trinidad to find the cheapest toys so I could ensure I have gifts to children in my district. That's not even coming from contractors. You should see how we operate when it comes to the program that we have as our party, that we treat with people during the July-August vacation and getting books to return to school, and the book vouchers. Even as we speak, I think we are still owing one of those suppliers who gave the books. You know how those suppliers are paid? After we accumulate money over time, and I hope to God my wife isn't watching this interview, because certainly she's not approving of the expenses in that way, or family income in that way. But that is how we fund our programs, from our pockets. So I am guaranteeing anybody, anywhere, anytime, that Farley Chavez Augustine is not $4 million richer. And if you add up all of my salary from December 2001 to present, I don't know if that reaches $4 million, but certainly it doesn't feel that way, given that a whole chunk of that goes back into the work I do for my community. Just about 2-3 weeks ago, I had about three or four funerals in my district in one go. What I did, I went into FCB Bank Uptown and withdrew some cash, put it in small envelopes with my condolence note, and sent it to the families, my money. I even saw one instance, and I could probably show you the WhatsApp. I know on this show, when you all are showing WhatsApp, you all sometimes be alarmed. It's not that kind of WhatsApp, right? But I could show you WhatsApp from a Tobago businessman who asked for assistance on a particular matter, gave the assistance as my duty as Chief Secretary. The next thing after he got through was to say, well, you know, you could come by me anytime, you could get some drinks and snacks for your schools and so on. I have not even responded to the WhatsApp message. I opened it, I read it, I did not even respond to it, because that is in essence wrong. So I am very clear as opposed to what's right or wrong.
Do you have evidence to support that you have not been taking any money at all?
Well, let's look at how I live. I mean, what am I doing with the money? And it's not about me finding evidence that I have not been taking money, but he who alleges must prove. So I don't know that people could just come up with any kind of allegation, make up things, and then somehow I must take a step away from my busy day to prove that which you made up is wrong. This is not going to be a case where you make up something and you drag it through court forever. And by the time the court and the police say, well, this is a waste of time, you have no evidence, the election is done, call and everybody forget about it. And I'm saying definitively that I do not accept kickback. I do not ask for kickback. And I'm going as far as to daring any contract out there to show where I, Farley Chavez Augustine, have asked them for any kickback anywhere. As a matter of fact, I am notorious for having a very hands-off approach when it comes to the procurement of services in the Tobago House of Assembly. One of the challenges I face as a political leader of a political party is that there are many people in the space, many contractors in the space, who feel like, look, I supported you on the election, I should be eating a food, I should get something. And they know that I ignore those calls. I ignore those calls hard because that is not my job. You have procurement people, let them do whatever they do. If they make a mess of it, then we'll treat it that at that end. But where I am concerned, I am very clear, very confident in my mind that I am not involved in any of that. But I want to go further because before the fake profile threw this thing up, and I noticed the MO of the PNM, so they will create this stuff, put it on a fake profile, and then come to a press conference after and behave as though, well, oh, we're shocked we're now seeing it, when in the first place, the same people now keeping the press conference are the same people posting it on the fake profile. Before I went up on the fake profile, I received two sets of things. I received a purported letter from Integrity Commission, and these printout of a WhatsApp message. And so the first thing I saw to do was to verify with the Integrity Commission. And we have had a lawyer write the Integrity Commission to verify that which I receive is true or false. And we haven't gotten a written response, but we have had verbal indication that letter is fake. As a matter of fact, I sent the letter to your producer this morning.
Yes.
And I want him to put it up on screen because I want to highlight how mischievous this thing can be. So I'm not sure if they have it as yet. Right, so if you look at that letter, and there are several circles in that letter. This is a letter that someone gave me purporting that there's an active investigation against Secretary James about these WhatsApp messages, right? One, the address on the letter is incorrectly stated. This is a letter from the Integrity Commission that cannot spell Princestown. This is a letter from an Integrity Commission with a reference number starting with 2004 instead of 2024, right? This is a letter. When we look at the signature of the letter, it's inconsistent with signatures from other letters from the Integrity Commission that we have seen. And I think I sent you that one to show the difference in signature and how the signature line is normally done. This is from an authentic letter from the Integrity Commission versus, look, let's go back to the original letter, versus the way this signature line is done here. So we have a letter with two different companies are mentioned in the one letter. So they didn't even get the company name right in the letter itself. The footer of the letter is wrong. Commissioners is used instead of commission on the standard letter from an Integrity Commission. So if I'm not a responsible leader, and I want you to take a moment and think about this, right? If I am not a responsible leader, then my knee-jerk reaction would be, I receive this letter, I receive a printout of WhatsApp messages. My first reaction will be, well, let me just fire Secretary James and keep it moving. based on this. If I am not thoughtful, if I don't read carefully, then I would have gone with this hoax of a letter, this hoax of a letter here. And so I got this along with those said WhatsApp messages. And so now I have to equally question the veracity of the WhatsApp messages. I have not spoken to the contractor that's a part of this purported thing. I don't think it's my duty to call that contractor, because I don't want to get in any melee of that sort. So I cannot even verify those WhatsApp messages. But what I could verify is that letter is fake. And what I could certainly verify is that I, Farley Chavez Augustine, don't accept $4 million, $4 or 4 cents from anybody when it comes to contractors in this space. And I want you to also appreciate, especially if you're from Palatovere, Lansomi, Speyside. And when you think back on the support I give to you when you have your fisherman festivals in Charlottesville, in Speyside, in Castara, and elsewhere, when you have a Christmas function in Palatovere, when we have to work to relight and clean up our court, when we have funerals and so on, I want you to appreciate that you have an AREP and a chief sec who refuses to beg contractors in this space simply because he's afraid of there being a conflict of interest, which means that he is always dipping in his pocket to help you. I want you to appreciate that. And I want you to appreciate that sometimes when I tell you, listen, I will help you, and the help only comes the morning of, or the help comes 2 days after, is because I literally could only help you whenever I receive my personal money. So I utilize my salary, my allowances as chief secretary, and you could Google what that is. You could Google how much that is, and you can do your own deduction for yourself. I am the highest paid member of the Tobago House of Assembly, in the public service, that is. And so that's public information. You could Google that and see what that is, and you could max out how much things I could do or not do with that. And I pray to God my wife isn't looking at this at this interview.
But that letter, was that reported even to the Integrity Commission?
Well, that's the point I'm making. I said we have asked a lawyer to write to the Integrity Commission to give verification. We have had some verbal communication, and we are just awaiting the written response from the Integrity Commission. So beyond us pointing out the errors in that letter, we have gone a step further to ask, because that's what a responsible leader does. You know, just take it at face value. And I'm not just saying I find the errors and that's the end of the matter. Just take a step further, because I am resolute in my mind. If a secretary, if a member of this team does something so wrong, so egregious, I am not even going to bat an eyelid. I'm not even going to shed a tear to put that person on the chopping block. We made that very clear. Not even going to break a sweat over it. I will chop the head off and keep it moving. Political head, that is, and keep it moving. But as a responsible leader, I have a responsibility to verify all of these claims. And where the claims cannot be verified, or where the claims, as in that letter, are seemingly false, then I have to call it out for what it is. And I want you to appreciate how nefarious our political opponents are. So you will utilize a fake page, you will put something up there, and then come out on a Sunday as though you're holy and righteous, and pretend as though, well, I am just seeing it like everybody else, when you yourself put it out there to try to bring it into the public space for a public conversation. That is old tactic, and the reality is that a tactic you use in the election, and you still get your tail bust up in the election same way. So I would think that you have more sense than that insofar as your political strategy. But if that is what you want to hold on to as your political strategy, you go right ahead. My job is to keep laser focused on creating for Tobago the greatest little island on the planet.
Now, I want to also talk about the Friendship Road and that construction
Oh,
of the,
happily.
because we know that this has been attracting quite a lot of negative attention. There's the injunction, there's the accusation that you have not been able to get a tongue and country approval, which is why the court is hearing the matter at this point in time.
Right.
So what's been
So
happening there?
let me speak on that guardedly because of the active court's case
Certainly.
and what is to come. But I will not say it's attracting a lot of negative attention. I am saying it's attracting negative attention from those who held office and underachieved when they were in office, right? And I want Tobago to appreciate this. We have had the Tobago House of Assembly since 1980. The plan to have a road passing through there to connect Tobagonians effortlessly to where the airport is has been a plan on the cards since Farley Charles was Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Might be even older, right? Farley Charles, God rest his soul, dead and gone. Mr. Orville London came, longest serving Chief Secretary, could not deliver, did not deliver it. He retired, he is gone. Kelvin Charles came, and his own people running him out of office like a dog. He has gone. Mr. Dennis came in an internal political coup. He came, spent time, we found enough money, almost $43 million to pay for 13 acres of land in Bacalet, right? So they could get their friends $40-something million just so. But didn't have time to really conceptualize and consider meaningful development programs for Tobago. He has gone his way. In fact, the electorate themselves have rejected him, spent force, gone. And in under 4 years, in one term, it looks as if this government is going to deliver a road of that size and that magnitude and importance and scale. And what is happening? Those who are political opponents will try every single thing possible to stop that, to prevent that from happening, which is fine. Use whatever method you want to use. And if you notice in the court case did not say that Mr. Hearn, that they had or have a right to the lands there, or that they have ownership rights to the lands there. The court case is not saying that at all. The judge literally said in the case, look, the only reason I'm putting an injunction on this because I saw somewhere when you were getting the approval from AMA that you should go and get some town country planning approval, notwithstanding what the law says about highways and roads and the rights of the THA. So go get that and come back. Let me pause this just with an abundance of caution. So that's fine. We respect the judge's ruling and that is being done. And I assure you that road will be completed. And I want to be able to understand the economic benefit of that because in some economic models, they will tell you that the road to progress, the road to development is by building roads.
Yes.
Because when you have road infrastructure, you now open up corridors of opportunities for so many other things. Right now, as it is, if you need to get to the airport, you essentially have one main artery that you have to pass, at least going up to Stumpy, before you get to the Stumpy bypass. If for any reason there is an accident on that main carriageway going down the middle there, if there is a medical emergency, if the road has to be blocked, then you can't get to the airport on time. Or if you are all the way on the other end of Crown Point and you need some medical attention, you can't get up on time. Ask the people in Crown Point what happens when they have their juvie and so on. They just have to stay home until that is completed. This road allows another access point to the southwestern peninsula of the island and to the airport. And I don't know what's happening in that airport. And by the way, the next time you interview them, ask them if the airport they are building have all the necessary approvals. Ask them if the airport they're building have town and country planning approval. Because when you apply for town and country planning approval in Tobago, copies of your plan must be sent to public health, must be sent to infrastructure for assessment and all of that. And I can assure you, as of this moment, those divisions, those departments, including the planning department in Tobago, have never received any of those plans for the billion-dollar airport project that they're building right now. So you must ask them that question and about how responsible and lawful they are. Because one thing Tobagoans must hate is hypocrisy. And one thing Tobagoans must avoid is political hypocrisy. And I will say to you, Tobago, that there are many in the space who will do all they can to distract, to create fake pages, fake letters, who will try every strategy in the book to stall, to stop. But this government will be resolute in delivering development to the people of Tobago, because we have been here as a THA 40 plus years. 40 plus years. Think of how many major roads the THA, and talking central government, the THA have built in Tobago beside the highway, the Clone Noel Highway. Think of it. Think of the last 20-something years. The only new road is the one in Scarborough that they built, the little bypass by Garden Side. I think that is what's bothering them, that they underachieved and that we are able to do in under 4 years what they could not do in 21 years.
All right, well, we're going to take a pause right there, but because we have to go to a break, but we'll be back with Chief Secretary Farley Augustine right after this, so don't go anywhere. Let's go! Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversation this morning with Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. Now, we were left off before the break talking about what's been happening with the road at the Friendship Connector Road and the controversy surrounding it. Now, I just want to ask you, sure. One of the things, because of the need to have certain certifications and so on before you do any sort of construction, this is not only related to Friendship, but this is just in general. Is it right that despite the cumbersome nature of getting these approvals and stuff beforehand, is it the right thing to do to continue doing these projects before getting those necessary approvals?
Let me reframe it for you. I don't know that the Tobago House of Assembly has ever operated by practice, by tradition, in a way whereby it is held to ransom by these so-called state agencies, which essentially are a part of the Red Army Brigade, because you know how those boards are formed. The boards are all directed and appointed by the politically directorate or the government in charge in Port of Spain, and they run things. You look at all of them, whether it's the library in town, whether it's the fishing depot in Castara, whether it's that which are out in Charlottesville, all of them, they have built it. And that's what I said, Tobagoans have to be wary of hypocrisy. The challenge I have is not so much that that there are projects happening without approvals, without those checks and balances. Because I said last time I was interviewing on this subject matter that as a government, we ought to do these construction projects responsibly. So I'm not in any way advocating and saying that we must continue in the same vein. We have continued in the same vein, and of course, that is one of the areas that we have to sharpen upon and fix and change, because we can't just be like those we inherited from. We have to be better. So I will appreciate the argument from that perspective. But what I want Tobagoans to be very clear in their minds about is that when it comes to environment, town country planning, and all of these items under the 5th schedule, I have a protest point to make, which is that these things should be operationalized by Tobago and not from the central government place in Trinidad. That's what the law requires. And my thing is, we are making all this argument about autonomy. I am printing out box full of documents to send down to the parliament, which was sent a long while ago. I'm surprised nobody from the parliament have even written back to say that thanks, you have received our package and so on. doing all of that work, we arguing every Monday morning about how this autonomy should look and feel like. And I'm saying the beginning of Tobago being autonomous is by us executing to the fullest extent Act 40 of 1996. And that's where I have a challenge. My challenge is bigger than EMA saying you need to have this, some countries saying you need to have this. My challenge is that we have several areas listed under the 5th schedule, and then when we go to section 27 of the act, it says that it shall be done by the THA. So even if the policy is created by the central government, even if the law is created by the central government, we have to respect that, but the execution must be done by the THA. And there are many areas of the act that we just not taking up our responsibility. How can we be out there demanding more when we are not fully utilizing that which we have? And I'm intent on utilizing all that we have. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, we met with our counterparts in Trinidad about town and country planning and about the act and how and the chairman of the MPA, as that board is called, led by Dr. James Armstrong. Just yesterday, we had that joint meeting discussing, what's THA role, how THA ought to be acting and so on. I carried the motion to the House, 2022, thereabout. We have the structure already authorized by Executive Council. We provide the space and everything, because I'm insisting that for all of these functions that the Tobago House of Assembly should be executed, that we should proceed to execute them in concert with the law. As a matter of fact, in the EMA case, the first EMA case, Justice C. Prasad, and people just talk without reading the actual judgments and actually listening in on the court case. Justice C. Prasad's position was, he said, look, I appreciate the argument you're making about THA being responsible for the environment, but I am not seeing evidence that the THA actually put any mechanism in place to carry out the actual law that speaks to what EMA does. And so in the absence of the THA putting any mechanism in place, I have to, by default almost, rule in favor of EMA, because I can't tell you, ignore EMA, do your own thing, and you have not put any mechanism in place to carry out that said function that you're arguing should be the THA's. And for me, that was a aha moment that said, look, Farley, you'll need to put everything in place to carry out all the functions in Act 40 of 1996. And that's where we should be concentrating our efforts at this time.
And while the political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Mr. Ansel Dennis, said he could construct the road, the Friendship Connector Road, cheaper.
But that's not true. If we look at, there's a cabinet note, because their policy was to have the central government come in and build the road. Our position is, if it's under the 5th schedule, it shall be executed and done by the THA, right? And what cabinet wanted to build, all it was a wider road, right? So it's a bigger eco footprint that they were going to put down there, which will do much more damage. In fact, the area where they wanted to put the road based on their drawings would have run through two lagoons. We actually shifted northwards from the original alignment of the road to avoid those lagoons and to minimize the amount of trees that had to be cut. Even where we have turned the connector to go to Shervan, we did it in such a way to minimize the amount of trees that had to be cut to make that connector. So all of those things were actually considered. And it's not that we and EMA have been checking up on the road very often, and EMA has been saying, well, look, your drainage is good, so we know that you won't get flooding. We see you have put these mechanisms. So EMA has been checking on the road very often, right up until the injunction. EMA was checking on the road to ensure we are maintaining environmental best practice. But I would caution Mr. Dennis, because I don't know that he's a person to say that he could build anything cheaper, because he's a person that sat with the former Secretary of Finance, and themselves in the executive procured hundreds of millions of dollars in works above and beyond the THA development budget, that now we are struggling to pay, that we had to audit, that auditors had to come in and tell us that the thing was done improperly, and that some of these things were overpriced, and that people were sending in invoices for works that were incomplete, right? They're supposed to give a 1 kilometer road. They give you half of that and bill you for 1 kilometer and all sort of stuff. They're supposed to give you a certain thickness. They chinks on it and then bill you for an alarming amount. He presided over that, so he should be the last person to talk. And as a matter of fact, Tobagonians have already made a judgment on that. He's not a member of the House. He has become politically irrelevant because Tobagonians have realized that he was incapable of doing anything within budget. Remember, during the 6-6, he came and he told us, look, we are going to be prudent. We're not going to be going on any large project, no large spend. But in that same 6-6, we find $43 million to spend on 13 acres of land in Bacalet. So I am not going to take advice from somebody who have lost. You don't take advice from losers. You take advice from people who have a history of success with that thing they talk about. And that's why I surrounded myself with people like Mr. Charles. That's why I sit ever so often and talk to people like Dr. Boris, who, by the way, was one of the chief minds behind that connector road down at Garden Side. That's why I surround myself with people who have had a history of success in the Tobago space. Mr. Dennis, unfortunately, is not one of them.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about a reshuffle, an impending reshuffle. In fact, this was something that you said, yourself said a year and a half ago.
A year ago.
What's the latest where that's concerned?
Well, I will share with you that all my secretaries and assistant secretaries are aware of the date of the announcement. They are aware of when the reshuffle will become effective by. And the fact that the media is still asking, it means that I can still trust members of my team because they have not disclosed that publicly with anyone. So I could tell you that my entire team is already aware of the reshuffle, when the announcement will be made, when it will take effect from, and I have met individually with secretaries and assistant secretaries, so people more or less know where they're going and where they're not going.
When will this announcement be made?
It will be made when it will be made.
All right. And is it going to be, is it going to be the entire executive council that will be shuffled?
When it is made, you'll be aware. Something that you may not be aware of that I have to consider, because, and the truth is, sometimes as a leader, you desire to do things at a particular time, and circumstances might be different. There are other contextual things that you have to consider. And sometimes as a leader, you just have to postpone some things. It's just what it is. It doesn't make you a bad leader because you postpone or you delay something strategically. That's just what it is. But one of the things that persons don't do in this space, for example, is that recently the Public Service Commission did interviews for new administrators. So that's something that's about to come up as well. And while I am not a part of that process, one of the things that I am looking at and gauging for is to have secretaries in a short while before the new administrators come in. I sort of also want to get some inclination of which administrator we will get where, because the interviews were done, and from the interviews that were done, only one of the existing acting administrators were actually interviewed. You know what that means? It means that we will have practically a clean slate of administrators. I can also tell you, because from those who were interviewed, that majority of them were not members of the public service, never been in the public service. Some were contracted employees of the THA. There's a difference. So you're talking about having green administrators all over the space too. So that's another reality that I have to contend with as leader, and ensuring that the shift and new administrators coming on don't happen in a way that causes too much chaos in the space, and that things can transition smoothly.
Now, are you worried that, with the change of administrators that is to come very soon, that would further exacerbate the problems that we're having, where sometimes payments are not made to contractors? For instance, we continually have the problem with performers from the heritage, or whether it be carnival, or just throughout. We always hearing daily rated pay, workers being paid late.
I am always worried about that, right? And I've spoken about it before, and I'm happy people are seeing it. I'm happy the contractors themselves are seeing it, because all of them, they're the people in the inside in works. All of them know money don't send to works get their money already, but works and pay me yet. And I've had to say to them, well, I don't do checks, I don't do the administrative part of that. That's out of my area for which I am being paid. And so it is a challenge across the space. I did say in the House at the last sitting that I will be mandating the chief ad to have a small task force to go through the space and look at what is causing the problem systemically. I am of the considered view, that we need to move away from these manual paper-based ledgers that we do all this work on, and move to electronic platforms. Yes, the initial investment will be high, because you're talking about purchasing devices for the accountants, training, paying for software and that kind of thing. But we just have to go. I spoke about digitizing our financial platforms, using IFMIS. But guess what? IFMIS is supposed to be a national program. Tobago did everything it's supposed to, and that's why sometimes when I hear others in the space talk about, oh, wait on Trinidad, do it in concert with Trinidad, don't run ahead, you're not your own country. We waiting on central government for time. Since before I come in office, we're waiting on central government. We do everything we're supposed to do in the THA, right? We had over 60 bank accounts all over the space. And when we add those that were inactive, over 100, we shrink down that, cut out all of these accounts, streamline the accounts properly, do everything we need to do to get IFMIS in the space. We are ready. Ministry of Finance and central government, they're sitting down on their hands. They ain't ready. So we just here waiting on them and saying, look, we're ready. At least let us start and go ahead. And they're not allowing us to start and go ahead. And that is another lesson for us to be going, as in why we must just do our own thing, because sometimes it just holds up the progress in the space, because we did everything. Since my first budget, I spoke about it. Since my first budget, I gave the commitment. Since June of 2022, I gave the commitment that we will put things in place, we will streamline the accounts, everything. We even had an incident where in streamlining the accounts, people got checks pegged against accounts that we had just closed, and we had to call them back in to change out them checks to them, because they couldn't now cash those checks because we had closed those accounts and so on. All of that we went through. Still waiting on IFMIS. And these are solutions that could help to move the accounting processes along much faster than we are moving them. It's very paper-based, and let me give people an inclination. So a division needs to pay for something. The division needs to request first, sit and decide where they're going to pull the monies from based on their allocation to pay for it. When that is done, the division prepares a request for release. That's done on paper. The administrator prepares a request for release that is sent to the Administrator of Finance. The secretary prepares one that is sent to the Secretary of Finance. I must now sign and approve the request on my end. The Administrator of Finance also correspondingly approves it on that end. Then it goes to the Budgets Department of the THA, who must not prepare the necessary warrants and so on based on the request. And sometimes, if it's a DP-related element, there's another element to it that has to be considered, which is the Planning Department, which have to look at it and do their own analysis, all of that before the warrant is prepared. But warrant is prepared and all of that. Then it has to be signed by me. And then money is released to the division. Then the division accounting staff then make the payments. So imagine if we had a digitized system, and I may have left out a few things in the mix there, in the matrix. Imagine we have a digitized system. Imagine for a moment that we could have people simultaneously working on the same thing, because all of us have access to this thing in real time. Then we can move things along faster. And that's where we need to go. And I think even as a country, it's not just Tobago, because if we have the conversations with people in the Trinidad space, they will realize that they have challenges too in terms of timeliness of payments. We have contractors in Trinidad space who are waiting long periods to be paid by the central government as well. So one of the things that we have to do as a country is to really digitize our platforms and move away from the traditional paper-based models. And that will require retraining and retooling our public servants, ensure that they have the capacity to treat with the matter. And that is something for us to pay attention to.
Now, I also want to touch on property tax, because we're seeing the mechanism going out, the valuations going out to residents all across Trinidad and Tobago. What's been the conversation with, between yourself and the government in terms of how Tobago handles the property tax that's collected here?
Well, the only conversation we have had is that it was reaffirmed to us by the Minister of Finance that taxes collected in Tobago will remain in Tobago. So that was reaffirmed. In terms of the property tax in general, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm not a property owner as yet. So I'm not sure if my father even received his assessment. I'm not sure.
They're still going out. They're still
I'm not
being
sure
delivered.
how many Tobagonians receive assessment to date, but you have to receive the assessment before you are required to pay. So I'm not sure where they are along that process chain. But for sure, all taxes collected in Tobago, including the pending property tax, remains in Tobago. So that is for sure.
And is there a plan to ensure that that property tax that's collected, it's separate and being used back into things like roads and that sort of thing,
Right,
which is what property tax is meant for?
So what the law says that all taxes collected in Tobago remains in Tobago and is to be used for capital development. So it's not used necessarily for paying salaries, save and except for those who might be salaried under development votes. So right now, as it is, any tax collected in Tobago that's offset against the budget allocation from the central government goes into just that: roads, school repairs, all our built environment and so on, all our development projects or DP projects. So that's only what by law, what any tax we collect in Tobago, what that is supposed to be used for.
All right. Now, when it comes to the TPP now,
Yes.
We heard the announcement just earlier this week that you are going to be having the first official meeting since the launch last year, first public meeting in Speyside.
Yes.
Tell me what's been happening with the TPP, and what can we expect?
It will also be our first meeting since the party's constitution was ratified and accepted by the membership. You notice I'm wearing beautiful blue today, the color of the heavens, and that's on purpose today for you. So we gather in Speyside on Sunday evening, where we speak to the people in the east, and we will be making our way around the island. No doubt, it is an opportunity for at that meeting. We'll also speak to the party base about the things that we have delivered. We spoke about the fact that one of our flaws is that we don't communicate sufficiently or communicate enough. It's an opportunity for us to communicate all of those things that we have delivered, all of those people that we have helped. Also communicate what some of the challenges that we are experiencing, and what are the things that are likely to be completed in time and before the next stage election, based on the mandate we were voted in to government for, what will take a bit longer to be delivered. As well, it will also set off the fact that pretty soon we will be going around the island to have the autonomy conversations, I did say to the public that, you know, we pull together all of these differences and so on, between what Tobagonians said they wanted and what actually ended up in the bills before the parliament. More than that, what we are doing is preparing at this moment a document that will be a pullout in the newspaper so that every Tobagonian can see it, can have it. And as you have that in your hand, that will happen in tandem with a docu-series which will be shown nationally, which will show both the history and also show where we are as an island with this autonomy conversation and what Tobagonians have said they have wanted. That will form the catalyst for where we begin those conversations again, because I don't think the conversation should start as if this is a brand new conversation. The conversation should start where we have left off. The conversation should start by saying, okay, Tobago, this is what you said you wanted. This is what former Chief Secretary London sent down to the Parliament. This is what the Parliament said they are willing to give to you. Now, Tobagonians, tell us as your government, are you willing to compromise on any of those things that you said you wanted? And if so, what are those areas of compromise that you are willing to make? And that's a decision that the people of Tobago must make. I will not even attempt to make that decision for and on behalf of Tobagonians. Tobagonians must tell me what are those areas that they wish to compromise on. So all of those subject matters will feature heavily in our conversation on Sunday evening up on Speyside. It is very far east, but the party is providing transportation to take people to and from the area. It was not my decision to take the meeting in Speyside.
I was just about to ask.
So let me say that clearly, that the party has an interim team that plans and organizes all of these activities. They made that decision. Also at the meeting on Sunday, we will announce at that meeting when our internal elections will be, and that will set off within the party people who are ambitious, people who feel that they should lead this great party, this great institution, that they can throw their hat in the ring. From Sunday, we will announce a waiver of On Sunday, we'll also announce a waiver of membership fees and the period for which those membership fees will be waived so that we can continue our mass registration of members. That is happening. We have teams that have been going around the island, going through the villages, taking the registration, doing the registration and engaging people and so on. So all of that has been happening with the party. So our party is as ready can be. We know that the anniversary of the THA will happen in December of 2025, and then we have some stipulated days thereafter for which the election must be called. We will operate within the law, no doubt, where that is concerned, but we are also preparing for the fact that we have constitutionally due a general election next year, and that should happen before the THA election. Mm-hmm. So even that we are prepared for and preparing for as well. And so we are pretty confident that Tobagonians will choose us, that Tobagonians will work with us, because Tobagonians have seen the quality of service that we have delivered thus far. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things Tobagonians are appreciative of is the fact that here is a government that have had every single thing thrown at it, every single hurdle raised in its presence, every single attempt to demean, to destroy, to distract has happened, and yet we remain standing. And that speaks to Tobago resilience. And a former chief secretary call it good old Tobago bad mind. Tobagonians' ability to pass through hell and come away with a slice of heaven. And that speaks to who we are, a Tobago-centric, Tobago-owned, Tobago-run, Tobago-philosophized party. And not one from Trinidad, not one where a man had to jump on a plane and come up and tell us what to do, not one where leadership is picked in a back room, not one where leadership decides the party name, party symbol, and owns the party. As a matter of fact, I was nowhere in the process of registering the party with EBC. My name is nowhere there. So no one has any fear that in the future that the political leader, and certainly the current interim political leader of the party, will ever come forward and say, look, I own this party and you do as I say. That will never ever happen in our political party, because it's Tobago owned. Tobago has decided the name, Tobago has decided the color, Tobago has decided the symbol, Tobago has decided that they want a party that will anchor Tobago in the midst of every single storm that we will encounter. And if you look at the history of Tobago, we have always encountered these political storms and otherwise. In fact, it's a political storm that led us to be placed as a ward of Trinidad. It's a political storm that resulted in Tobago forcefully saying to the parliament in 77, we want something called the THA. We want internal self-government. And we have been through this all our political lives. And the people of Tobago has decided they want an institution that can anchor Tobago down in the midst of the storm, which means that storms will come. It doesn't mean that it will always be smooth sailing, but you can be assured that we are anchored firm, we are anchored deep, and that the rough season just tossed me all over the place. We ain't like that ship that overturned there, spilling oil. Our moorings are good. We ain't overturning any day, anytime soon. You'd have to send rescue operations for us. You'd have to go and pay for booms to contain us, because we are anchoring Tobago down for every bad weather. And if you're anchored properly during bad weather, it means that during smooth and peaceful weather, the sailing is quick, effortless, and you get to the destination. But I want the island to appreciate, based on where we started this conversation, I want Tobagonians to appreciate, based on where we started this conversation, that look, I want you to begin to see for yourselves opportunities in this space. Mm-hmm. I want you to see the role of government as being a facilitator and not a owner. In fact, in any democracy, the government is never the owner. The government is always the facilitator. I want you to see that there are opportunities for you that you must grab hold of, and that you must engage, and that you must do something about it. I lamented in the past what happens when a cruise ship comes in on a Sunday, and I'm saying, look, these are opportunities. Why are you closing your stores? I came and I spoke to people about refusing to accept other currencies beside the US dollar, and saying, no, think big, accept. I threw out the challenge about having a cambio there at the Esplanade, and guess what? We will get one soon, because the Chamber of Commerce has taken us upon the offer, and they are organizing to have that operationalizing very, very, very soon. Mm-hmm. The point I'm making is there are opportunities for you to self-actualize in a space called Tobago. Are these opportunities enough? I'll be the first to say that they are not enough. Right. And I'll be the first to say that with the budgetary limitations we have, it's difficult to create enough opportunities. But I'm saying, if we go it together, slowly we'll create more and more and more and more opportunities for more and more people. And I want us to get to the place and get to the day when every Tobagonian, every young Tobagonian feels like they can self-actualize in Tobago. As a matter of fact, the fact that I could self-actualize here and be in this space, the fact that I could speak my calling into being, I want the average Tobagonian to speak that into being. And even as our members go out to schools later this week and into next week in preparation for C, even as we go and deliver stationery and and give the children a pep talk and so on, as we do every year, I want all our members to remind our students that, look, you could sit in humble classrooms, but you could reach as far can reach. Think of Mr. Dumas, who we are honoring and who unfortunately passed away. From right here, was called upon by by former Secretary General of United Nations to go to Haiti when Haiti was in crisis post earthquake. And he could do that because he ended up magically, coincidentally, by providence, in the same university at the same time, sharing space with the former Secretary General of United Nations at the time, Kofi Annan, creating those linkages and those networks. And I'm saying to young Tobagonians, as we engage them this week in the classroom, be reminded, even as you do the C exam, that there's just a whole big world out there for you. The world is so big. You know, there's this poem about the bird and the nest and the bird one time thinking the world was made of hard blue shell, and then thinking no, it must be made of straw and brooded by my mother, and said no, but it must be made of trees. But no, the world is bigger than this, because the bird eventually goes and realizes this world is huge, it's large, it's big. And I'm saying to every young person on the island, the world that you have available to you is big, it's massive, and the opportunities are endless, boundless for you. And I want that from right here in our humble classrooms, that we spend millions on every year fixing up and painting up and querying whether we have enough desks, whether we have enough fans, and all of these things, whether AC working, is so that you can leave this place and go conquer the world, and conquer the world with Tobago emblazoned on your chest, proud. And that's the kind of Tobago we want. That's the ethos that we want for our young people. That is what this government is about. And every single opportunity I have, I remind my members of that. Look, remain humble. Remember the fact that you are here because Tobagonians allowed you to self-actualize into this position. Tobagonians took a bet on you. You won't get everything right. You will make some mistakes, but just keep pushing. You will have some hard days. Some days you go home. I could tell you some days after this oil spill in the early days when we were getting in sometime after 1, sometime after 2 in the morning, Director Stewart and I stand up there watching the oil, scratching my head, trying to call trucks because the tide is low. And Tobago and truck driver said, me ain't putting my truck in that oil at all. Me ain't want to see water on my equipment at all. Worried, saying, look how this thing going to work out. I remember some nights, mornings getting so tired. I said, listen, me ain't going to bed before I sleep, and I just knocking out on the sofa somewhere. Just knock out in the house till morning, till my wife wake me up to say, look, get up. Why are you sleeping in the sofa? I said, nah, because I was too tired to even venture past this point. But the reason why we do all of this is because, first of all, there is an unwavering love for Tobago. And it's not a love for Tobago because you gave me this position, because I had loved Tobago before I got this position. I loved Tobago before I even was paid by Tobago taxpayers. I loved Tobago when I was a student outside of Tobago. I loved Tobago when I came home and they said I need to work 1 year to pay back for the grant funding we gave you, and I worked 7. I loved Tobago when I campaigned and did not win and we were in minority. I loved Tobago when the salary was just a little over $11,000. And when I talked to the teachers, I said, you leave teaching for that salary? My teacher's salary more than that. I loved Tobago then. I loved Tobago even in the 6-6 when you felt like you were so close and couldn't make it to the next end. I loved Tobago when we offered and said, let us come together. Let's have a governmental unity for Tobago, work out this autonomy thing and go back to the polls having the autonomy. And that was rejected. I loved Tobago even during the campaign of December 2021, when they twist up me words, all kind of, they take things out of context, create ads all over the place, or you couldn't watch news in peace, right? Slander my name up and down the place. I love Tobago then, and my love for Tobago has not changed and will not change, because it is not contingent on what Tobago has blessed me with. And it's not contingent on me trying to eat a food. I am satisfied whatever my salary is. And whether the Prime Minister and they raise it or not is inconsequential. My love for Tobago will remain unwavering. And that's what I try to get from my team every single day, especially on a day like today when we have exec council. Love Tobago enough that you're frustrated because the thing ain't getting done fast enough, go in a corner and cry if you want to. Say a prayer and go back at it with another next strategy. That's the kind of love you must have for Tobago. And love it enough that when I shift you and I move you, that you ain't whining about whether it's what I think you should have or should not have. But your love is prompting you to serve in any way you are called to serve.
All right, and I think that's a note that we're going to have to end the conversation this morning. Yes, I mean, we know that there's always going to be issues that we would need to cover. There's always questions that you need to answer, but unfortunately, we are out for time this morning. But maybe you could come back very soon and we could tackle some more issues.
I'm always willing.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Secretary. And viewers, thank you for joining us this morning. It was certainly a pleasure having you on. And I hope you have a safe and wonderful day. And we will see you again tomorrow. So bye for now.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the sky.